Hi, this is John Bolton, and you're listening to Vigilant Liberty Radio.
This is your Vigilant Liberty Radio news from Independent Journal Review for Thursday, February 5th. ISIS has taken a gruesome turn when it comes to using social media, particularly Twitter. It appears that the decision to burn Jordanian pilot Moaz al-Kasasbeh to death was the result of crowdsourcing via the hashtag Suggest a Way to Kill the Jordanian Pilot Pig. The call for suggestions was apparently retweeted over 11,000 times, and the method used was among responses ISIS received on the social media site. Replies were often tagged with "We all want to slaughter Moaz." That was the Islamic extremist response to the hashtag We Are All Moaz. Political consultant David Axelrod is drawing attention to at least one claim he has made in his new book, Believer, My 40 Years in Politics. Axelrod implied that Mitt Romney's concession phone call in 2012 involved a reference that Obama's win was due to increased black voting in urban centers like Cleveland and Milwaukee. The Romney camp was quick to fire back, stating that Axelrod misrepresented what Romney actually said. Not to be left out of this fray, Obama himself made some references to Romney in a statement about his concern about the poor. Romney fired back on Twitter, stating, "Mr. Obama, wonder why my concern about poverty, the record number of poor in your term, and your record of failure to remedy." IRS Commissioner John Koskinen has confirmed that Obama's executive order will enable illegal immigrants to benefit from the Earned Income Tax Credit. Quote, "The program allows you to file for an Earned Income Tax Credit program. In terms of whether you can do that retroactively, the normal statutes of limitations would apply as to when you can apply, file an amended return in effect." Republican Senator Chuck Grassley, unhappy with this response during a hearing held by the Senate Finance Committee, fired back, quote, "This is a problem you get into. The IRS has an interpretation of the EITC eligibility requirements, undermines congressional policy of not rewarding those for working illegally in the United States. It is estimated that 4 million undocumented immigrants will now be eligible for tax benefits and Social Security numbers under the plan announced by Obama. I'm Liz Harrison, and this has been your Vigilant Liberty Radio news from Independent Journal Review for Thursday, February 5th.
DLR.
This is Politinerds Radio with your hosts, Jazz Shaw and Doug Matakonis.
Welcome back to Politinerds, episode number 5. I'm your host, Jazz Shaw. I'm here with Doug Matakonis, and this evening we're talking with former UN Ambassador John Bolton. Mr. Ambassador, thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks very much for having me. Glad to be with you.
We'll get right to it. I know you don't have a lot of time, but we like to get a little bit into the background of people so that our listeners get more of a full sense of the picture. So if you don't mind, I just want to jump right into going really far back. I've read in your bio, sir, that you were born in Baltimore and your mother was a stay-at-home mom and your father was a fireman. That doesn't sound particularly born with a silver spoon in your mouth. Was that sort of a blue-collar upbringing that you had, or what was life like?
Yeah, no, it was a blue-collar, but my father would be quick to correct you and call himself a firefighter. He always used to say a fireman was a guy who stoked the engine on a locomotive. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not the job that that he did. He was a union man, a shop steward, and all the rest of it. But I wouldn't characterize it as a hardship upbringing. We never thought we lacked for anything, despite the low salaries paid by the city of Baltimore. But they encouraged me to work hard and get an education. I got a scholarship to a school in Baltimore called McDonough, and then I got a scholarship to Yale, and then I got a scholarship to Yale Law School. So I owe most of that, I think, to them, both for the genes and for the incentive to work hard.
What was it like, I guess, going from that, from your basically blue collar life in Baltimore and going into, Yale Law School and then beyond into Washington? It must have been quite a transition, at least initially.
Well, I think the thing that was striking about Yale, and that's still striking about the great universities, is for all the privilege that you see there, how liberal they turn out to be. The students, the faculty. It was true when I was an undergraduate in the late 60s and in law school in the 70s. Still true today. And I think it shows a basic disconnect between the liberal elite and the rest of the country, and is therefore a huge opportunity for conservatives to connect with people who don't share those elite liberal views, whether it's on climate change or affirmative action or political correctness or a whole range of issues like that. And I believe in character building exercises. I think being able to say I went to Yale and survived as a conservative tells you about what it takes to be a success in a difficult environment. I say the same thing about having worked in many different jobs at the State Department over the years. If you're gonna take on a task, you might as well take on a hard one.
That's a great answer, because it leads into something I did want to ask you. You, at a very young age, well, relatively young compared to most of us here now, you were already sort of enmeshed in conservative views. I saw that you were actually part of the Young Goldwater Republicans when you were first going to college, and this was happening in a period when the rest of the country in the late 60s was heading towards the summer of love and hippies everywhere and everything. What do you think established your conservative views so early? Because we tend to think of young people being more liberal and then, perhaps getting more conservative when they get older. Do you credit that to your parents, your friends? Is it just stuff that you had dwelled on a lot as a student, even in high school? Or?
Well, I thought about these issues a lot because they were interesting to me, philosophical issues and political issues. And I think as a teenager, I was pretty libertarian. I certainly was attracted to Barry Goldwater, and I think I still today call myself a Goldwater Republican. He was very libertarian on domestic issues, but he was tough as nails on defense issues. And I don't think I've strayed too much, from that point of view in all the years since then.
And now, Mr. Ambassador, you went from a time in you worked for several top Washington law firms out of law school, and then you went into into public policy. I mean, were you always looking, even in law school and in the legal professions, public policy is your ultimate? Is that where you saw yourself, or did you just stumble into that?
Well, no, I'd been involved in politics for many years, although I envisioned practicing law forever once I got out of law school. But one of the first cases that I helped bring was a case called Buckley against Vallejo with Ralph Winter, one of my professors at Yale Law School, and the firm I was with, Covington & Burling, challenging the post-Watergate campaign finance reform laws to try and get them all declared unconstitutional. We got some things struck down, the expenditure limits on federal candidates. We had the Federal Election Commission itself declared unconstitutional, not so successful on some other things. But I did a lot of campaign finance law work, and then when Reagan was elected in 1980, honestly, I just couldn't let the chance go by of not getting into the government, although I hadn't anticipated that. I didn't want to miss it.
We really need to get along shortly to what you're doing right now, but because this is fascinating, and I think our listeners would love to hear this, I'm just dying to ask you one thing. You had written previously that when you went to school, you were there at the same time and apparently knew both Clarence Thomas, Supreme Court Justice, who you became quite good friends with, and Bill and Hillary Clinton at pretty much the exact same time. I'm curious, when you were there, did you get a sense ever of like history that you were part of this group of people that were all going to become prominent someday on the national stage, or were you just a bunch of college kids like, fighting it out with your various political views?
Yeah, well, we were all in law school. Clarence was a law school classmate. I mean, everybody at Yale Law School thinks that he can become president, or maybe should become president, if only the peasants would agree. I won't say I was drinking buddies with Bill and Hillary, but they were a year ahead of me, so they were there for 2 years when I was there. And on Hillary, I think one insight that I come away with is that the way people are in law school or grad school is pretty much the way they are. She was a radical in law school. I still think that's where her heart is today. So she's going to have no trouble embodying Obama's views in what, if she wins, would be Obama's third term. Nobody should think she's more moderate, particularly on national security issues, than Obama.
And that brings us to, actually, I guess the main reason we have you here today is you spent at least part of the weekend, and obviously I understand the weather apparently has played into your plans, but you spent part of the weekend in New Hampshire. So I guess without beating around the bush, the question is, what are you doing in New Hampshire, Mr. Ambassador?
Well, I'm considering whether or not to run for president. I did in 2012 as well because of my concern over the national security issue not being given enough prominence in the overall political debate. I was actually headed up to St. Anselm College to speak at the New Hampshire Institute of Politics to make that point and particularly to critique what was wrong with the Obama administration's, not only its foreign policy, but its basically, it's taking the issue out of the center of the public debate where it ought to be. I just think that's critical. I spoke out in Des Moines, Iowa, the weekend before last at the Citizens United Steve King event out there to make that argument, and I intend to continue to make it. So perhaps next time when the snow permits me, we'll have a chance to talk about it further.
That's a very good lead-in because I was discussing this with Doug earlier when we were preparing to do this interview, and the prevailing wisdom, if there is such, is that the 2016 election is going to be very heavily centered on foreign policy because of just all the mess that's going on in more places than we could list on this call around the world. What do you think of the current state of American foreign policy in terms of, is there anything we're doing right, and what are the big shortcomings?
Well, the current state of American foreign policy is wretched because the president doesn't attend to American national security. He doesn't focus on it. It's not something that he really sees as a priority. He's the first president since Pearl Harbor, I think, who doesn't wake up every morning and think as his very first thought, what threats does the United States face in the world today? And I think it's been a problem for Republicans not challenging his lack of attention to foreign policy. It's a sad commentary that only a few relatively short years after the attacks of 9/11, too many Americans have already forgotten the lessons we learned that day. And I just think it's while the perception is out there now that national security policy will be more important. I think that's because of what we saw in 2014. It's one of the reasons I formed a PAC and a super PAC then to back national security candidates, and why you have to keep at the issue to make sure that it remains on the table for 2016.
And with that, we'll be right back on Politinerds Radio with Ambassador John Bolton.
Hi, I'm Dustin Hoyt with America Our Way, and you can hear me right here on Vigilant Liberty Radio at 10/9 Central on Thursday nights. We bring you the best in political commentary from the right-wing, conservative, libertarian perspectives coming together and bringing the best content on the internet. Be sure to tune in every week for your favorite shows. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter.